Hello and welcome to Beyond the Noise, the podcast series from PRWeek. I'm John Harrington, the editor of PRWeek UK. Now, it's September and party conference season is just around the corner. Public affairs and comms professionals will of course be making beelines to the annual gatherings of the UK's biggest political parties. Here to discuss all things party conferences are our two guests. Nick Williams, Executive Chair of International and Public Affairs at Burson London. Hi Nick, how are you today?
I'm absolutely wonderful. Thank you for having me on.
Pleasure. Thanks for joining us. And Katherine Morgan, partner at DGA Group, also based in London. Katherine leads the London Public Affairs team and is head of Europe Public Affairs. Hi, Katherine. Thank you for joining us too. Are you well today?
I'm very well. Great to see you, John. And hi, Nick.
Great to have you here. So before we dive into conferences, it would feel remiss of me not to ask about the big comms news from Downing Street this week. As you've probably seen, Portland founder Tim Allen is back at number 10 as Executive Director of Communications as part of a major shake-up that also sees the departure of Director of Strategic Comms, James Lyons. So, Tim Allen, as many people know, is previously a comms advisor to Tony Blair and Gordon Brown. So it'd be good to ask you both if you think this is a good appointment and what's your take on the news. Nick, would you like to go first?
I think it is a superb appointment. Tim is a true professional, really nice guy. He's done it before. Not only does he have experience of Downing Street, all the political comms, all the skills, but he's also brings with him all that professional experience of having set up a hugely successful consultancy. So I think it is a first-rate decision from the Prime Minister, but my goodness, it needed to come, because the comms from Downing Street has been pretty lax over the past few months, and the whole team there really needs to change gear, and Tim Allen will absolutely be behind that.
Brill, thank you. And Katherine, do you agree with that sentiment?
Absolutely. I think it's a fantastic appointment. I completely agree with everything that Nick has said. Of course, though, exactly as Nick said, it's going to be incredibly tough. The Downing Street has got so much to do to turn things around. They've got a really tough autumn ahead of them. So whilst Tim is a fantastic appointment, whether or not he can shift the dial is really open to question. And I think there's been some other really strong appointments into Downing Street as well. Daniel Smith will be brilliant. And I think that it should be a much sharper machine than it was, but they've got a hell of a job to deliver and to shift things around for Labour.
Yeah, well, let's see. Fascinating times. So on to conferences then. Let's start with the basics, really. Why are party conferences so important for public affairs and comms professionals? Katherine, what's your view?
They are incredibly important still for comms professionals, and I think it's just a key part of the calendar now for all public affairs, people in public affairs. It's an opportunity, of course, I think, to really get under the skin of a political party. Of course, we're all networking and talking to political contacts throughout the year, but this is a chance to really be there to see the beating heart of a party from grassroots all the way up to ministers, to sense the mood of the party. So I think it's really important from that perspective. Of course, you also get the chance to speak to MPs and to ministers without having to battle through the grip of their private offices. So those short conversations or those drinks that you have in the bar can be so incredibly helpful in terms of building your connectivity or really getting to understand the policy direction of a party. But also increasingly, it's just an amazing jamboree now for public affairs professionals. And I think this has really changed in the last few years. Just everybody in public affairs is there, and so to build your network, to build your connections across the public affairs world, it's just incredibly important now to be at the party conferences.
Yeah, makes sense. And Nick, do you share that sentiment?
Absolutely. Look, it's the one time in the year when you get to see the key politicians and their advisors, and they are without their civil service guards stopping you seeing them. So you get far greater access, and literally hearing people speak at fringes as well. This is where you get really great insights for our clients. So it's no wonder so many people have applied for conference passes, certainly to the Labour Party conference. It's literally a colliding of politicians with businesses, with civil society, with pressure groups, and it makes for an interesting mix of key people. I often describe party conference as public affairs heaven. It's literally key for everything we do for our clients. It's a real time when we actually have to focus on their needs, which are so available at conference for them to meet people, to get their messages out. But it's also a great place to actually road test messages for us. We run a lot of campaigns and actually getting people's opinions on what messages will work and what ones won't. I think it's a key thing to do. Plus, I would also say looking at horizon scanning, seeing what people actually talk about on the fringe circuit actually leads to policies developing later on, not only in government, but for all the opposition parties.
Absolutely. And it sounds like you both personally enjoy conferences. Would you say that's a fair assessment?
So my background is Labour, and a lot of my friends are in the Labour Party, and I really enjoy going to the Labour Party conference. Of course, I've got lots of connections right across the political spectrum, and it's fun to go to all of them. But I really, really personally enjoy going to the Labour conference because I know so many people there, and it's great to catch up with people. But whether or not you enjoy them, it's just as we've talked about now, become absolutely essential if you're in public affairs and you're advising clients and you need to understand what's happening across all the different political parties. You've just got to be at the party conference for all the reasons that we've talked about, to really understand what's going on, to understand the mood music of the different political parties. So I really enjoy going to Labour, but you have to go to all of them, and you've got to be there, particularly if you want to be able to give your clients a really strong full spectrum of advice from across the different political parties and to advise them on the trajectory of politics.
Well, I must say, I actually calculated how many years I've actually been going to party conference, and this is my 32nd year of going to conferences, which should make me slightly older. I still feel extremely young somewhere, which is good. But after 32 years of going to conferences, you'd think I was slightly blasé about going to them. But I absolutely, as Katherine was saying, love conference, because I really just love that political theatre, which the whole conference is, whether it's the speeches from the main conference centre, whether it's the fringe meetings, whether it's literally people round and about, all of it has to be absorbed and taken in. It is a very special time.
Absolutely. So let's go into some of the details about your plans for the conferences this year. Could you give me any insights into the ones you're going to? Presumably you'll have a presence at the main ones, and in what kind of numbers and what activities you can tell us about that you'll be involved in.
Well, from Burson's point of view, we are absolutely, as you'd expect, out in force at all the political conferences. In terms of the activities we're undertaking, we've got clients doing panel events, we're doing private roundtables, we've got some big bang conference installations, but you just have to wait and experience it for yourself. I don't want to ruin it for anybody. And of course, all our clients who are attending all have a series of meetings, some of which are parts of longer term campaigns, some are more relationship building. And we're also doing the Burson dinner, which we always do at conference on the Sunday at conference, where we have a key speaker, and a huge amount of people have signed up to it already.
Brilliant. And Katherine, similar out in force?
Very similar. As we've talked about, it's such an important event in the year. All the conferences so important for us in the year, and so we've got people going to all of the different conferences, including Reform, which I know we'll come on and talk about. But the absolute focus for us, or our greatest presence, of course, is going to be at the Labour conference, and so we've got a huge number of the team going. I think actually more of the team going than we've ever had before, which is a reflection again of the importance of conference. And then we're organising fringes, we've got people speaking on panels, all of the things which Nick has mentioned. We've got our own lounge at Labour, so our own area for our clients to use, which we're running a number of fringe events in. So for our clients, for our networks to come and really get out of the scrum, have a drink, hold meetings, and we've got an area of people to use. So if you want to come and use the DGA lounge, then don't hesitate to get in touch. We'd love to see you there. And we've got quite a few journalists and politicians coming in to spend some time with us there as well. And then, like Nick, we're also doing a dinner for our clients and contacts, which we do every year on the Monday night. So people can go to Nick's dinner and our dinner. So it's the Monday night at conference, and we've got Caroline Wheeler, who's the political editor of the Sunday Times, speaking at that. And then we'll be doing a similar thing at the Conservatives. Although actually this year, very few of our clients are going to the Conservative Party conference. There's a real shift this year away from the Conservatives, even compared to last year and pre-election. There's very limited interest in going to Conservatives, but a huge interest from our clients and our contacts in going to Labour.
Interesting. Nick, have you found a similar thing happening there regarding the Conservatives? Is there less interest in them now?
100%. I mean, let's be honest, politically, let's see if there's pushes on changing the leadership of the Conservative Party. I think that's the big issue at the moment. However, I'm a great believer that all political parties and all political conferences are important in some ways, because politics is changing so differently that using opposition parties to help in campaigns you're leading to gain support, to put pressure on the government, there's actually a role to play on that. But in terms of actual physical corporates, and therefore numbers of people from Burson, the Conservative Party is far less interesting than it has in previous years. But as I say, still important to have a presence there. And of course, with the Reform Conference, that is going to be the one coming up imminently, where there's going to be a huge interest as to how many people show and which big corporates show.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think maybe we move on to reform now. I mean, in sort of general terms, how would you describe how your approach to lobbying reform has changed since, well, let's say, take the general election? They've obviously been on a high in terms of the polls in recent times.
The fact is, Reform are doing so well in all the opinion polls, it would be a very serious mistake not to take them seriously. Clearly, this is going to be the first big conference where lots of businesses have recognised that they do need to engage Reform. Reform have got open arms for businesses at the moment, and are quite easy to access in terms of engaging what your clients' needs are. That they will listen. Whether they would do anything about it is another matter. But I really expect there to be a lot of interest, a lot of businesses and a lot of consultants going to the Reform conference. I hear Reform have a big corporate sponsoring the conference. I don't think that is yet been announced, so we will wait and see who that is, because undertaking a big conference costs a lot of money. And getting in that sponsorship, I think this is just the start of all Reform conferences moving ahead.
Just picking up on that, I think you're asking, John, what's our advice to clients? Look, we all know, we've been around for a long time, that politics can change very quickly. And so, of course, we're picking up on the previous point. You shouldn't forget Conservative Party conference. You must be at all the conferences, including Reform, because things can move very quickly in politics. But Reform is clearly, everybody can see, doing incredibly well. The business must be thinking about them, and it must be part of our political engagement strategies moving forwards now. We have to accept the realities of politics. And so in terms of what we're advising our clients to do, some are very nervous about engaging directly with Reform, and understandably so. We are helping them to navigate a path to the right kind of engagement. We are going, of course, to the Reform conference, and we'll be reporting back for our clients and speaking to contacts that Reform there on their behalf, because there is a nervousness about engaging directly with them still. We'll hopefully know more, though I think they've said they're not going to set out any more policy proposals on Friday. We'll hopefully know more after their conference about what it is they're going to do, what their policy priorities will be moving forwards. But there's still a lot of nervousness, trepidation about direct engagement. And so as a consultancy, we really need to be there on the ground to advise our clients and to be helping them navigate what's through potentially a reputationally quite difficult period of working out how to engage with Reform.
I think it's also worth saying that if you want the Labour government to take notice, then get Reform to adopt that policy ahead of time, because if whatever Reform is doing, Labour to some extent are trying to match it. So that is clearly one way to try and influence Downing Street directly.
There's definitely quite a lot of that going, and lots of people trying to get Reform to pick up their issues, to put pressure on the government. Let's see whether or not that works, but there's certainly that's one tactic.
That's a really good point. In fact, there was some research this week from the CIPR that's just come out that said apparently 20% of public affairs professionals surveyed plan to be at Reform's conference this year versus 12% last year. So that really points to this trend, doesn't it?
I'd be amazed if 20% of public affairs professionals are at the Reform conference. They probably just don't want to admit that they're not going, but I think there will be a very strong public affairs presence there.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. So it'd be good to dig a bit more maybe into clients. And you sort of mentioned the nervousness that clients have. What sort of things can you say to clients and sort of, I don't know if reassure is the right word, but maybe give them advice about the sort of tactics when, they do feel like they need to engage, but they might also want to feel like they don't necessarily support such a controversial party, I suppose.
I think it's interesting actually that some people, as Nick alluded to just now, that some organisations are coming out on Friday and directly supporting them. So there are a number of organisations that we know who are sponsoring fringes, speaking on panels at Reform Conference. So some are already happy to actually accept reform and to embrace the agenda and to move forward developing relationship with them. So it's interesting that some already feel comfortable with that. And then I would say in terms of others, it depends very much on the organization and are they listed, are they where they're at, how they position themselves previously. So you need to develop a plan and an engagement plan for each. I wouldn't say there's one set, this is what you should be doing now. We need to see how things unfold.
And I think it's the critical role that consultancies play to bring their clients, if you think something is the right thing for them to do, not only just today, but for the future, is to bring the client with you. And clearly, when we say the client, you're probably dealing with a head of government relations or a head of communications, but they will also have to internally get buy-in from their C-suite. So it's all about a process of initial engagement, making them feel comfortable, but also making them aware of what the potential of the reform could do electorally. And of course, next year we've got the Welsh, Scottish, and lots of English local government elections where they're predicted to do quite well. So I actually think this conference, yes, we're going to see a lot more people than normal attending conference. My goodness, you think the Reform Conference 2026 is going to be even bigger. So this is just going to be the start.
Well, we will wait and see, but it does sound likely. I guess I want to go back to some of the more general approaches to and sort of observations on party conferences that have happened in recent times. I mean, how do you say your approach to the conferences has changed in the past, say, 3 years in the post-lockdown COVID era? Are there any sort of particular changes you've noticed in how your consultancies approach it?
I just think it's bigger. The certainly Labour conference, not the Conservative conference for obvious reason, but there's just so many public affairs people now going to conference, as we talked about. It is this coming together of so many different facets of politics and public life in one place, and it's just so well attended now. I do think it's become just a much bigger part of the political calendar for lobbyists. Obviously, party conference has always been incredibly important for the development of policy formation for political parties and been politically important, but actually for public affairs lobbyists, actually its importance has really scaled up. It's just the scale of it now for public affairs people is totally different to how it was before.
It's kind of funny, isn't it? Because you would have thought with so much going sort of virtual and IRL is less of a thing, that conferences are actually getting bigger. It feels like almost counterintuitive, but, it just, I suppose, goes to show that these things really attract people.
I think it comes back to the point we both made at the start of this conversation, in that you actually are dealing with, my goodness, real people. Politicians are actually real people, and you can talk to them. When they're back in Whitehall or in Parliament, it's not so easy to get to see them or get to meet them. Whereas Parliament, they are literally walking around. And I think getting that sense that they are real people who do talk and will talk to you usually is only a good thing. Coming back to why the conferences are so busy, of course, Labour is in Liverpool, which is a much smaller venue, I would say, or a much tighter venue than Birmingham or Manchester. And Labour's, I think it's got a 5-year contract in Liverpool. I forget what year we're up to in that. So it makes it even a more intense experience of bumping into people than most of the other conferences. I should also say just one other quick point about how conferences are changing. What we've been doing over the past few years is how you use social media to engage politicians at conference, and through geo-targeting in the conference areas and through the apps politicians will be using. That is definitely a new way in to actually engage directly with politicians, because as we've all been saying, there are so many consultancies out there. Being able to get your message across effectively, people are having to think in the latest, most creative ways to do that. And social media is absolutely the way to do it.
And I think also, just picking up on your point, John, around why in this virtual world that we're in, why everybody is happy to congregate at these party conferences. In a way, it feels like they've become the kind of Glastonbury of the political calendar of the year, where everybody goes and everybody knows everybody else goes. And so it's your opportunity to really get together, have some fun time with people, have some interesting conversations with people. So people don't want to miss out on this moment. So then there's this consensus to all come together.
That's interesting, isn't it? The kind of FOMO part of this. I could
And
imagine.
you say now, well, let's meet at party conference, and oh, well, should we meet for lunch? Well, I'll see you for a coffee at conference. Why don't you come to our lounge? Why don't you come to our dinner? So it's a great meeting point.
It's definitely sort of kind of mirror of Cannes Lions in this sense, that you do often hear that, oh, let's meet up on the Croisette. People who actually work in central London who you could just meet any other day in Soho. But
I'm
yeah,
not so
But
sure
without this,
Liverpool's quite. Yes, I'd rather be in Cannes than Liverpool. Maybe we can lobby for that change.
no sun and no sand. And if it was anything like last year's conference in Liverpool, the raincoats and umbrellas will definitely be out in force.
absolutely.
Hopefully there'll be a contract with Cannes in rather than Liverpool in a few years' time. Let's see.
You heard it here first. Brilliant. And on that point, are there any sort of places that you really like when it comes to sort of, I won't ask for the places that you dislike, I think that would be unfair, but are there any sort of locations where you think, oh yes, I'm really happy that they've renewed their contract there and that's a place I like to be, or does it not really matter ultimately?
I think Labour Party conference in Brighton is the best. They probably won't do it there again, but it's great in Brighton by the sea.
I go back so long that Blackpool was the place to go to for all the conferences. And I don't want to say anything against Blackpool, which is a wonderful place. But, I was mentioning the rain in Liverpool. I seem to remember the horizontal rain in coming off the sea in Blackpool, many a conference. But as with Katherine, Brighton was always a great conference. And I hope after all the refurbishments of Brighton, perhaps Labour will go back there.
Yes, I would vote for Brighton. I lived in Brighton for several years, and I remember when Party Conference was on down there, and it was quite hard to sort of move, and certain roads being shut and all this sort of thing. But actually, I remember going to one or two events there, and I wrote about the pub industry, and it had quite a nice feel to it. So yeah, I would vote for that too. But moving on. I mean, I guess there might be people listening to this who do feel a bit of FOMO. They haven't been to party conferences before, but maybe they're going for the first time. I mean, what sort of top advice would you give to those sort of party newcomers?
I think this is absolutely based on 32 years of conferences, and I can't even remember properly the first conference I went to. It was one member, one vote, which seems like a very long time ago. But I think the key thing about conference is make the most of it, because as we've all been saying, there really is nothing like a party conference. It's about keeping your eyes open. It's about absorbing, taking in what you see, what you hear, how things are done, learning what is best practice in public affairs, because you will literally see it playing out in front of you, and just enjoy it, I would say.
I would agree. Have your ear to the ground, take the temperature, assess the mood. Network, especially if you're in public affairs. This is the best place to build your network at party conference. And go into the conference hall, actually. The number of people who go to party conference and don't go, particularly in the lobbying side, don't go into the conference hall. You've got to go in and hear the speeches and understand what's being spoken about. So do make sure to do that. And absolutely, as Nick says, just go and enjoy it. Have fun. Enjoy the madness of party conference and look forward to the next year.
Brilliant. And how do you describe the parties, as in not political parties, like the actual parties at the conferences? Do you think any political party in particular does that type of party well? And are some of them a bit duller than normal? I wouldn't want to pick on any party in particular that might be known for sort of dullness and being centrist, but
You'd have to be very brave to criticise the party conferences which we were going to. I'm sure there are highlights of the best parties in all of the party conferences.
I went for the first time last year, I shouldn't admit this, but the first time to the Liberal Democrat Party conference in Brighton, and it was absolutely brilliant, and I had a really great time, and it was really interesting, and it's so small that you really can talk to everybody there, and you can navigate your way around, and everybody's involved. So they're all great, but actually I'd also recommend the Lib Dem Party conference for a slightly different experience.
brilliant. Do you feel that, given everything going on in politics in this country and indeed around the world, these will be even more significant conferences from a party political point of view than usual?
I think that for both Labour and the Conservatives, these are incredibly important party conferences. I'm not sure how much of party conference resonates with the public, but both Labour and the Conservatives are in very difficult political positions. Labour is really trying to rebuild its narrative, get on the front foot ahead of what's definitely going to be an extremely difficult budget. They've got this 2 weeks now where Parliament is sitting, and Reform has its conference on Friday. So Reform is already dominating these 2 weeks in September. Party conference provides another opportunity to set its narrative, to get on the front foot, to set out some strong policy propositions that will capture the public mood and see off some of this tide of support from Reform. So I do think this year is really an important year for Labour. Every party conference matters, but this one particularly so, given where they are. It's an opportunity for them really to try and take back some of the control of the narrative that they so need to. And the same for the Conservatives. Kemi Badenoch, of course, is in great personal difficulty. People are simply not registering at all what the Conservative Party are saying as an opposition party. They really need to try and rebuild some of that momentum and rebuild some of that public impact, and this party conference will be an opportunity for them to do it. So I think this year is incredibly important.
So completely agree. I mean, for Labour, we've had Starmer announce this reset, changes in his team, new head of, as we were talking about, Tim Allen, in charge of comms. This conference is going to have so much focus on Starmer himself. In an ideal world, the Prime Minister needs to do the most passionate, the most visionary speech he's ever done in his life. We all know, however, that is not really the person he is, and that's going to be the great difficulty. He needs to show real leadership. He's done it by making changes, but he needs to be able to communicate that through his speech, and he's going to have to pull out the speech of a lifetime to really push that agenda further. Also, huge amount of attention on Nigel Farage and the Reform Conference. What are they going to say? How are they going to position themselves as they go into the elections, which are going to be critical elections for them next year? And those elections alone could have a huge impact on British politics. And likewise with the Conservative Party, the whole of the future of the Conservative Party, way down in the polls, is up for grabs. So, politics, my goodness, it doesn't seem that the election was just over a year ago. Politics is so volatile, and that's why political consultancies have such a vital job to do, working closely with all their clients. And this makes it a fascinating and intriguing political period, but also a fascinating and intriguing period for all businesses who will be looking for stability and looking for direction as to what the country is going to do to get out of the economic situation it finds itself in.
Absolutely. Well, crucial few weeks ahead, and we'll be watching with interest. That's all the time we have for today. Thanks so much to Nick and Katherine for your insights, and really enjoy the conference season.
Thanks very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you also to everyone for listening, and until next time, goodbye.